Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Your Overseas Home webinar, Madeira Relocation Essentials, Expert Advice for a Stress-Free Move. My name is Christopher Nye, and I am Senior Editor at Your Overseas Home and Portugal Property Guides. So it's great to have you all with us. I am joined by John Mather and Jessie Sorrell from Émigré. They're joining us from downtown Funchal. John and Jessie, why don't you introduce us yourself and Émigré, and then we'll get on to the presentation afterwards.
Okay. Well, Jessie and I run this small company as buyer's agents. Our purpose is to help clients to move here in a smooth fashion without trouble-free, hopefully, and to negotiate and help them with buying their first property and avoid all the pitfalls of that. So we've worked with these seminars for some years, very successfully. We're only a small business, but that allows us to give very personal service. Every case is bespoke. So that's us. We've been doing this. I've been here since 2016. But prior to that, I had for 50 years a wealth management business in central London, and we owned half a dozen real estate agents employing 78 staff. So we know a little bit about real estate. And over that career, I've dealt with over 700 property transactions. I think we've seen virtually every issue that you could look at. So I think experience matters, but the local knowledge matters even more. And that's where Jessie comes in as a native of Madeira. And also she's got the energy to go with it. So.
Fantastic. Right. Well, we're going to have a presentation. I'm going to ask some questions, but what we really want is your questions too. So please put your questions into the questions tab on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer as many of them as we can as we go through the next half hour. So with that, I will hand over to John and Jessie for their presentation.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So for who doesn't know Madeira, Madeira belongs to Portugal. It's an island in the middle of it's called the Pearl of the Atlantic. And my question is, because some people asked, why Madeira? Why should we move to Madeira? So my question is, why not? If you don't know Madeira, it is called the Pearl of the Atlantic. It's also known as the island of the eternal spring. So this is already very attractive. And a very interesting thing is that for 9 years in a row, Madeira has won as the best destination island in the world because of the variety that we have all around the island. But I will show you more reasons why you should move here. So, for example, the weather. This is a picture of Funchal. The average temperature all year round is about 20 degrees, and it's one of the places that rains less because it's protected by the highest mountains just behind. It can rain, as you can see on the picture with the rainbow, but the temperatures are very good. Also, the temperatures of the sea, they can vary between 17 to 26 degrees in summer. So all year round, it's nice to go for a swim. Up in the mountains, we can have snow in the winter. The temperatures can go down to 0, -2 maximum, but that's only on the top of the mountains, about 1,800 meters from sea level. So it can be snowing up in the mountains and sunny down in Funchal. So you have a lot of microclimates around the island. There's a picture down on the right side, that's on the north. Normally the north side of the island, on the same day, the temperature can be 2-3 degrees less compared to the south. It rains more, so that's why it's more green, more lush, as you see in the picture, but still very beautiful and amazing landscapes. Here you can see the roads. I've chosen these pictures because the top two, you can see it's the old roads. It was the roads to go all around the island. Beautiful views you can get on these roads. Some of them are not in a good condition anymore, so that's why we built it. Lots of bridges, lots of tunnels. We have about 140 tunnels on the island, so it makes it easier to move around. It's not so nice to travel inside the tunnels, but believe me, it's safer and you get quicker to the other side of the island. The food is fantastic. I think the picture talks for itself. You see the meat, the fruits, the vegetables. The vegetables and the fruits, they taste very good because the island is volcanic. So the soil is very fertile. So everything that grows here tastes really good. The fish is amazing, the limpets, as you see in the picture. And we also have the Madeira wine, which is worldwide known. Beach. So some people say that Madeira is not good as a beach destination. I totally disagree. As you can see on these pictures, we have a big variety of beach. We have on the first picture, like a mixture of black and gold sandy beach. There's a black sand beach on the north side on the top right picture. The famous pebble rock beach that you can have a nice free massage when you lay on them. On the middle one, there's a gold sandy beach, but that's an artificial beach. Although it's in Madeira, the sand was brought from Morocco, from the Sahara Desert, so we really like going to the beach. And on the last picture, you can see the popular volcanic pools that there is some on the north side and also in the south side near Funchal. And if you don't think this is enough, you can take a ferry, 2.5 hours. You take the ferry in Funchal, 40 kilometers away from Madeira, and you have this gorgeous island called Porto Santo. It has a 9-kilometer gold sandy beach. It was considered last year the best beach in Europe, so good excuse to go there. And there's also hotels, nice restaurants, hikes, and a golf court in Porto Santo. There is some culture and some events going on in Madeira. That's the Madeira Orchestra playing there in their 60th anniversary. We have the popular Flower Festival, the New Year's Eve. It's spectacular, as you can see in the picture. The fireworks, they're blowing all over the bay. It's beautiful to see from downtown or up in the mountains. It's an amazing event in Madeira. And on the bottom right picture, there's a picture of the type of festivals we do in Madeira all year round. They can be religious, they can be celebrating the fruits, the vegetables. We even have, for example, the Sweet Chestnut Festival, where if you go there in November, you can try soup, liquor, pudding, a lot of things made of sweet chestnut. We have a lot of adventure things to do on the island. So the island is not only attracting older people, it's also attracting young people for all the activities that are possible to do. Scuba diving, paragliding, hiking. Hiking is super famous in Madeira. The picture in the bottom left, it's canyoning, so it's going down the streams using ropes and jumping into the water. Cycling can be road, can be mountain. It's possible to ride on the roads, although the roads can be a bit narrow and steep because of the up and down hills. It's possible to ride. And for you to know it's true, that's me on that picture, cycling. And also golf courts. We have 2 golf courts in Madeira Island, one in Porto Santo, and they're currently building another one on the west side. About health, a lot of people, they speak about how is the health in Madeira, the health service. Currently is being built a new hospital, and it's going to be universitary as well, so it's a teaching hospital. And part of this hospital is subsidized by the EU. So we are very lucky to be having a new hospital being built in Madeira. So our health service will be even better. And the picture you see below is the people walking on the streets of Funchal. It's very safe. Just to say, it's very safe, Madeira. You can just walk. in the streets of Funchal. I was the other day going to the bank with a client, and then we started talking about the safety of the island. And the client said, "Oh, I noticed that you were walking on the streets with your purse open." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't realize that, but I feel safe. So it's fine to walk in Funchal like that. And the quality of the air is amazing. So it's a very nice place to live. So now talking about places where you can buy a property or where you can live in Madeira. First, we have on the south Funchal, the capital, and it's also where the majority of the population are living. About 50% of the population is living in Funchal. So you see a bigger concentration of houses. Just next to Funchal, there's Câmara de Lobos. That's where I come from. I'm from there. And it's considered the fishing village. And there's also lots of banana plants, more closer to the sea. And higher up in the mountains, there's the vineyards. There is Ponta do Sol, Calheta. Calheta is becoming very popular. Lots of luxurious properties being built there because of the sun exposure, and lots of properties with pools. I think it's the area where there is the biggest concentration of houses with pools. And still in Calheta, there's a place called Prazeres. This place is already at 500 meters from sea level. So although it's still Calheta, it's higher up. So the weather is a bit cooler. It's more rural, but if you would like to have like a farmhouse or something, a very calm life, it's a beautiful place to live. We had a client that moved there recently. She went to say hello to the neighbors, and they are offering her till today fruits and vegetables. So it's a very welcoming population. And this is the north. As you can see, it's very green, very lush, but it's very hilly. And it rains more, like I said before, but it's also a beautiful place if you would like to be more connected to nature. And we have Mexico on the east side of the island. It's a bit windy near the airport, but it's also a beautiful place to live. And it takes about 20 minutes to be in Funchal, so it's not that far. And the last one, this is Santo da Serra. It's similar to Prazeres, the one in Calheta, about 500 meters from sea level, but a bit more green, but it rains a bit more. It's more misty, but it's nice to have beautiful gardens and big areas around the house, like you see on the picture. So there is a few types of properties you can buy in Madeira. You can buy bespoke properties. These ones, if you choose to buy a property like this, so you buy off plan, you need to choose a good builder if you're lucky to find one, because nowadays it can be tricky to find a builder. Everyone seems to be busy. And there's a lot of paperwork to legalize the property, to start the construction. So this can take a while. So it's up to someone that it's not in a hurry to move here. There is properties under construction. This particular one, it's in the center of Câmara de Lobos. They all have the view to the bay, which is unique because there isn't too many properties there that can have this view. And this one is already under construction. And the good thing about this one is that when you buy under construction, you can pay in stages. So if you are not ready to move now, or if you don't have the money available now, it's a good option because you can just start with 10%. Then when they start the structure, another 10%. And then when they start putting the windows and the ceramics, you give another 10%. So you just pay about 70% when it's completed. And also it's good because depending on the stage you buy, you can always make some modifications and make it more your taste. And not to mention that it's always very good to buy a brand new building because the quality of the construction is good insulation. And then if you want to sell one day, it's always a good investment. And there is the existing properties. There is the ones with the modern lines, apartments, and ones with the traditional lines that are very beautiful. In this case, if you want to buy something existing, it's easier to negotiate the price. When you buy under construction, you cannot negotiate. But in this case, you can negotiate the price. Depends on the seller, if they want to sell fast or not. It depends on a lot of things. So why do we create this service? Why do we act for the buyer? So when you buy a property in Portugal, there's a lot of documents involved. There can be things that are missing. So we created this service to make sure that you're not buying a problem, making sure that all the documents are correct. So when you have your property, there's no one coming and saying, oh, this property is mine, or things like that. There's a lot of estate agents in Madeira. There's about 2,000 estate agents in Madeira. And the reason why I'm talking about this, it's because they normally want to sell what they have listed in their own agencies, their own fish. And sometimes they end up saying bad things about other properties because they want to sell their own, or sometimes they leave on the website properties that are no longer available just to get leads. So and there's also agents that has no certification to be agents, and you can end up buying a problem. So that's why I call them the pirates. After you choose a property, normally we recommend you to get a survey to go and make an inspection to make sure everything is okay. But that's up to the client to decide. If it's a new building, it doesn't make sense, but older houses, it does make sense, and we recommend doing that. And not least, last but not least, that's a picture of our office. Just to tell you that we're here in Funchal. You can always come here after you buy. If you don't buy, it doesn't matter. We're here to hold your hands. Even if something comes up after buying a property, any matter that you think we can help, we're here to help. So we keep friends along the process. So now I'll pass the word to John.
Well, I'll just summarize why I think it's rather dangerous to procrastinate with this potential move. Basically, the UK economy will take some decades to improve, no matter who gets in today in government. They have a poison chalice there to deal with, and that means that some of the things that we predicted 15 years ago are certainly here with us today, and it's pretty clear which way it's going to go in the next few years. It's going to have troubled times, and tax rates may not go up, but the tax collection definitely will do. So alongside that, Portugal has been giving the opportunity to move to Portugal. It's still available, but for how long? The danger is that they will start to remove some of the benefits and some of the opportunities to get you both into Portugal and also to get an EU passport. So we need to not procrastinate, to get on with it, really. That's if, of course, Portugal is part of your personal solution. And certainly on what we call the wellness and the health index, we score very heavily there. And certainly I moved here thinking I never want to be cold again. And certainly that helps. We know that we can learn from the successes that we've had and with failures that we've observed and repaired for others. So you don't need to make those mistakes. You will have the security of somebody holding your hand through the whole process. We use specialists where necessary. Quite a few people are downsizing, and this can boost your discretionary income by buying very well, releasing capital. You need to know that the golden visa is still available, or in fact, if you can become resident soon, there are a number of visas available as residents, and we can just briefly go through those in a moment. So that's where we are. What I'd like you to think about, though, is relocation overall. Migration is an issue in many countries these days, but it's not just the poor in rubber boats that are the problem. There are millionaires moving as well, and it's quite strange how since 2017, 12,500 millionaires have left Britain to go elsewhere, and it's predicted that this year there'll be 9,500 moving in 2024. We're already up to 3,200 for this year so far. One of my fears of when this happens, since you're exporting some of your major taxpayers, whether they will be bringing in capital controls and whether you'll ever be allowed to take your money out of the country. I'm old enough to remember capital controls when one of my clients, Dennis Healy, brought in some restrictions on taking money even for holidays abroad. Many of you youngsters won't have realised that, but that is possible. So be careful. Also, capital gains tax, the sale of houses at the moment is quite favourable. If you were to sell your house today, say it was an investment property, and there was capital gains tax on it, it gets revalued to the value in 2015. If that were taken away and you had to pay capital gains tax since you bought it, the tax charge could go through the roof. So think about the timing of when you make a move. I could go into more detail on the number of taxpayers that are leaving and who pays which taxes, but that's maybe for a detailed discussion some other time. But let's just go over the cost of living, because really what matters is how much you're left with in your account. Just comparing, consumer prices are generally 36% higher in the UK compared with Portugal. Rent is 34% higher in the UK. Restaurant price is 69%, groceries 28% more. And if you compare that with London, it gets even more exaggerated. So cost of living is much, much lower. Our electricity bill is less than 40 euros a month, for instance. Our water bill is trivial. We finished out, I just paid one for €7.60. So it's not very expensive to live here. And that matters. If we took the worst situation on all of your income being taxable in both countries, there's a sort of crossover point where if somebody on 54,000 a year, they finish up in the UK with 3,513 after tax per month. In Portugal, that would be 4,112. The domestic cost for that family would typically be about 3,000. So there is discretionary spend of over 1,000 a month, not allocated and not pre-spent before you get up in the morning. So just for your own situation, if this is a model, what do you think the domestic bills are like in the UK? And what is the discretionary spend in the UK? That's been shrinking and will shrink more in the coming years. The right option on visas? Well, some of the most popular are the D2 and the D7. The D2 is for entrepreneurs setting up a small business, and there are some tax benefits under the NHR regime for people doing that. The D7 visa is really what they're called the retirement visa, really. All you've got to prove is rather modest income. You know, the minimum wage, 850, you've got to produce that for the first applicant, half of that for the spouse, and half of that again for a family member under 18. Obviously, if you can exceed that, it obviously helps and betters the chance of success over the long term. Just to bring, I apologise for the complication of this, but in fact, really one of the biggest questions you've got to ask is, are you ready to become tax resident? Because the visas, the D2, the D7, and the digital nomad, they all demand that you are tax resident to go forward with that, which means you're spending more than 183 days in Portugal, and probably much less than that in the UK, to make sure that you are only taxed in one jurisdiction, or you don't have the worst of both worlds. The golden visa, if you can't move immediately, the worry is that the rules will not be there available to you in 3 or 4 years or 5 years' time when you actually can come. So in that circumstance, we can freeze the legislation for you by entering into the golden visa. This used to be possible by buying a property, and that was removed at the end of last year. But there are funds available. And since I used to be in that business of managing funds, I was a director of a hedge fund for 10 years. So I've been fairly careful at looking at which ones I'd invest myself in. But that gives you only the requirement to be in Portugal for 7 days a year. So quite modest. So basically, there are popular. If you can ask that question, do you want to be tax resident in Portugal very soon? Yes, then we've got lots of choice. If not, it's the fund. D7, perfect for retirees and landlords. D8, the nomad visa, beats the gap year for the children, really. A relatively short-term one, but they can be renewed. The digital nomad visa is perfect for remote workers. The golden visa, perfect for investors with cash savings and those who want to spend a minimal time in Portugal and to come and get their passport in the future. The D2, perfect for entrepreneurs, creating jobs here. There are some ramifications on that where even substantial businesses, we can get your corporate tax rate down to about 5%. But that is coming to an end in December. So we need to act quickly on that if we're going to take advantage of it. Portuguese citizenship available just for you get your Portuguese passport. All you've got to do is pass a test on language at about the level of a 12-year-old. So not too difficult, not too onerous. So residence in the UK, after the 5 years, obviously, you can go anywhere you like then within Europe with your European passport. So, questions and answers? Perhaps we could minimize that screen. Chris, over to you with the questions that people have put in. Hello, Chris?
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, very thorough. If I wasn't convinced already, you would definitely have convinced me. But I was convinced because I had a holiday in Madeira a couple of years ago, and I just remember we had this lovely rented this place on the cliffs of Funchal, and we had a little garden, and we had a palm tree, and we had a hawk nesting in the palm tree, and I could look over the bay with binoculars. I could see the dolphins playing in the bow waves of the pleasure boats. So I know it's a really idyllic place. So just tell me, I know it's lovely in the winter. What's it like in the summer? How hot is it in the summer?
Well, typically it's in the mid-20s. We did last year have an unusual event where it went over 35 on 2 days, but that's very unusual,
right?
And rare. Mm-hmm. I've only seen that once in all the years since 2016 that we've been here. So, but typically you can say 20, 25, 28 is the daytime temperature, and it might go down to 20 at night, 18 to 20 at night. So, because
I know that a lot of people are worried about. I know a lot of people are worried about temperatures in our traditional Mediterranean destinations. They're just getting too hot, whereas in Madeira you've got that sea breeze and it's nice and cool.
Well, the other thing, we've got unlimited water. We're also about 45%, nearly 50% self-sufficient in energy, based on wind, hydro, and solar. And the objective is to get rid of the 2 last remaining diesel generators that produce electricity. So we're not that far short of. We should be self-sufficient in the not too distant future. All we've got to do is just stop importing food and transport it around the world. But we have the land to do it. So
that was one of our questions actually about are there any water shortage problems? So you've answered that one. Another question we've had is how long does it take to fly from Lisbon to Funchal?
About an hour.
An hour and a half.
An hour and a half, yeah.
And if you become a resident here, when you travel to the mainland, you can only pay 86 euros for both flights. Yeah. You pay the full amount, and then you get a refund. So it's a subsidy that the people in Madeira receives in order from being from Portugal but living on an island.
Excellent. So we've had those 2 questions answered. If anybody else has any, please do throw to the box. So can we just look back at the golden visa? Tell us a bit more detail, because I mean, we've heard that it's been cancelled, but it hasn't for some investments, I would guess.
Well, the golden visa has not changed at all, other than domestic property is no longer included. It was said that that was damaging the local market. I'm not sure that it really did do that, because it really wasn't competing with the local market. And it was about 1% of all transactions in the last 5 years. So really, there's more politics than sense in that. But then that's a common disease worldwide, isn't it? But you can invest in a fund, and there are about 30 funds available. I've been through a number of them and worked out which one we will use. We've done this with clients before. A lot of our clients that have taken those visas were planning to retire. They know when they're going to retire, but they're concerned that the visa options will not be available then. So we need to freeze it. So they put the money into the 500,000 into a fund instead of into a property, and we can make sure they only have to visit about a week a year thereafter. So that gives certainty to the planning that people are doing.
Okay. Now, really speaking for about time, but let's just go on for a couple more questions, because there's a couple that I had. The role of the buyer's agent. So you're not an estate agent. You don't sell properties yourself, but you just help us buy. So how does that work money wise?
Well, we are regulated, and we are estate agents. We have that license. We just choose to only act for the buyers rather than the sellers. The way in which we work is we don't know how much to charge on day one, because we don't know how much work. So what we did, we decided, look, nobody can guess the value of the house within 1%. So let's just charge 1%. We used to charge that in the estate agents in England, so I'm used to those sort of margins. Selling is actually more profitable. People get 5 and 6% commissions doing that. But our challenge then is, can we save you more than we've cost you? Because it's not really price that matters, it's value that matters. And typically, we can save a client somewhere between 3 and 5 times what we cost them. And you can see the benefit of that almost immediately. So our clients have been pretty comfortable with paying that. The way it works, we'd like a little bit of give and take with this. So people put 1,000 with us once they've decided what to use us, which is not refundable, because we do actually have some costs. And then when you exchange contracts, the balance of the 1% is payable. So, but typically we secured one recently. We managed to negotiate a 20,000 reduction in the purchase price, which obviously was more than paid the 4,000 fee that we received. So that's how that works. But there are also recruiting the team that you get. You do need good lawyers. We want your lawyer to write the contract for purchase, not the vendor to write it. It's important you make a will on Portuguese property. You need to be doing that at the time. We need to get you introduced to a bank that's going to be helpful to you. We need to get you a proper surveyor to survey the properties. Most agents here will try and avoid you getting a survey done. We think it's such a major investment, it's essential you do that. So we guide you all the way through that. And we work with you no matter how long it takes. We're trying to encourage clients to come for a decent period of time so that we can actually have the chance to find some decent stuff for you and give you maximum choices.
So would we book so come out there and look at properties? I guess is that one of the first things we do?
No,
would you have some consultation?
normally we do something like an online call, get to know one another, what the aspirations are, what the model is, what's in your mind, refine that and maybe even send you some examples to test what you're telling us. The internet isn't that reliable, as Jesse mentioned earlier. There are lots of things on there just fishing for clients which are just not on the market. But we can know what is on the market. Normally we'll help you, we'll appoint and work with one agent, rather than you telling 20 or 30 agents what you want, and repeating the exercise and none of them listening. We'll get somebody who does listen, who's capable, who's honest and straightforward, and they can go and sort out any commissions with the holding of the listing, that's their problem. They can sort that out. And we'll work with those agents to make your transaction as smooth as possible. So.
Okay, we have had a couple of questions that I would like to get in if we can. We've got one. What's the typical cost of a survey of the survey?
The last one was a 3-bedroom house with a lot of garden around in Funchal, and the client paid around 800. It can be between 500 to 800 euros, depending on how far it is from Funchal, how old the property is, how big. It will always depend on those factors.
Okay. We've also had a question. Property prices in Madeira have increased in the last 5 years. What do you think is the lower limit to consider buying property in Madeira?
300, 350. Well, you can get something for 250. It won't be in central Funchal, and it won't necessarily have fantastic views. If you want, but really for most of the clients that we've dealt with, selling what you've got and applying, you won't need to apply all of that to something similar or better than what you currently live in. And a lot of clients actually finish up with money in their pocket at the end of the day, having got what they want. You can buy a very substantial house at around 700, 800. But there are, those houses in the picture. That one house is probably 1.5 million, and we have had clients paying, up to 2 million for properties. Depends on every case is bespoke. What matters is what the client wants. We're not pushing any particular product. So.
Okay, and what about older buildings to renovate? Is that a thing? Will you find a builder if you wanted to, or would you have to do it yourself? And are there those sort of old and beautiful buildings that need a bit of TLC?
Well, it depends how you're going to manage it. How you're going to manage the products. I think we've stopped some clients who rather unrealistically thought they were going to manage something from a distance, and a major property thing like that doesn't work. If you're building from scratch, then maybe you'd be employing an architect and an engineer and a project manager. Sure. But if you're cosmetic stuff, easy, relatively straightforward. The difficulty is getting hold of a builder with some time to do it. That's the more difficult part. But it's certainly doable. Older properties tend not to have the insulation. But, for instance, I have an apartment right in the centre of town opposite the casino. We're only 50 metres up. It's 6 years old, the building, when we bought it. It took me 5 years before I realised the air conditioning didn't work because we hadn't turned it on. So you don't need the heating, you don't need the cooling in the right locations. You go above 300 meters, you probably do need to consider heating and cooling.
Sure. So. Okay. Well, that's all the questions from our audience. So I guess we'll call a halt there. If the audience does have any more questions, please do send them in, or you've got John and Jesse's contact details there. You'll get them anyway with the email that you'll get after the recording. And so please, we would really recommend that you contact Émigré, and they'll sort out your property and your new life in Madeira. So thank you very much to John and Jesse. If you found this webinar useful, then please do leave us a review on Trustpilot. There's a link on your screen now. And if you want to see this recording again, there's tons of information there, then please do watch again and take any notes. And hopefully we'll be seeing you in Madeira very soon. So thank you, John. Thank you, Jesse. And thank you to our audience.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye-bye.
And thank you very much for attending.